Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, and on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you subscribe to Off the Floor. We tell you this all the time, but this is the time that you really want to do it. The most heat anywhere, the most heat information, conversation. It's all there. You can check out 10 different channels, including the draft channel, the transaction channel, and get the host updates. If you're interested in what's going on with Kevin Durant, I can tell you anything that's coming from me is going there first. So I put it there first, then the podcast before it ever gets to Twitter. So check it out. It's Off the Floor. Link right here in the description. $2.99 per month. Also check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE. Put down your $5. You get $50 to play right away. Legal in the state of Florida. Again, you can play across the sports spectrum. So yes, you can play the NBA Finals with the Stanley Cup Finals. You can also play along with the hosts of Five on the Floor, although don't play along with Alex because he's currently in fourth place. And I can continue to say that until he gains on us, which hasn't happened yet. So check it out. Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. Put down your 5. Get your 50. And now, I keep saying today's episode. We're putting out like 2 per day. The latest episode.
Mercy. Luxurious. Heat Nation. Yeah. Mercy and Lago. Down to Biscayne.
Yikes. Five on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing bubble frauds.
Down to Biscayne.
Kept the floor playing. Got it all banned. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on the Five Reasons Sports. I got Bryan Fonseca. You can follow him at Bryan Fonseca. And why, again, this was not the plan today, but there was a trade, and there are implications as we're talking about players that are currently on the Miami Heat or players that fans may want to be on the Miami Heat. So, Bryan, let's go through the trade today because I don't think anybody saw this coming. And this is what I'm always speaking of. We're talking about rumors. 75% of the big trades that are made are the ones that are not telegraphed. Like we talk about all the insiders, and I'm not disparaging them because this information is hard to come by. People have agendas. That's why it's put out. But a lot of these trades just, again, we talk for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks about like a certain player is going to be traded or maybe a certain team that's going to be involved. And then all of a sudden, Luka's traded to the Lakers and nobody sees it coming. Or today, Desmond Bane traded. There was conversation about maybe Ja was going to be traded from Memphis, or maybe Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., because they didn't want to give him an extension. And yet it's Bane who's traded. And although there were conversations out there, a lot of speculation about Orlando and whether or not they were going to make a big move to kind of, push this thing forward in a weakened Eastern Conference when they already have 3 really good young players to build around. I don't think anybody saw them trading 4 first-round picks a week plus before the draft. So, Bryan, let's go through the trade, what it is, what it means, but then also what the ramifications could be for teams like the Heat that are trying to make their own deals.
So the trade was Desmond Bane going from Memphis to Orlando for 4 first-round picks and a swap. The 4 first-round picks, number 16 in this upcoming draft. So almost a lottery pick, but not quite. The Suns' 2026 pick next year. And then 2 Magic unprotected picks in 28 and 2030. And a light protected swap in between that in 2029. Lightly protected swap in 2029. Going back to Memphis is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, and all those picks. It seemed like a lot, but when you really digest it and really think about it, and there's like a lot of different nuances that we'll get to. But in short, to me, it is a pretty steep price. It's similar to it brings you back to Mikal Bridges going for 5 first-rounders.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Desmond Bane is definitely a better offensive player than Mikal Bridges is.
Yes.
Defensively, he's not, but offensively, definitely. Orlando also, because I know we're gonna get to like there's a piece of this that people listening to this show will especially want to get to, which we'll get to, and we know who that's about. But the picks are also inflated because Orlando is getting off of a big contract in Contavious Caldwell Pope, who has 2 guaranteed years left. He has a player option next year. Likely he'll opt in. That's like $22 million. So it's a salary that Memphis is like, okay, they're gonna have to eat that now. Jaren Jackson Jr. is extension eligible. Brian Windhorst says John Morant's also extension eligible. And it's hard to pay 3 guys a lot of money. It's hard to even pay 2 guys a lot of money for some markets, but it's hard to pay 3 guys a lot of money. Desmond Bane's contract it's locked in, and it's going to age well. He got 34 in the first year of the deal, and he's got a bunch of years left on this contract. The second year is going to start this upcoming year. It's a 5-year deal, but when you look at it just year by year, 36.7, 39.4, 41.2, and about 45. It's 44.9 with rounding that final year of the contract, which is in 28, 29. And by that point, I mean, that could be a bargain deal. Like he'll be 30 and his game it's not like he's a high impact, high athleticism, always gets injured no matter what he does, type of game. He's a better playmaker than people give credit for. Like we'll get into some of the numbers and how this will affect things overall, and we will compare him to Tyler Herro because I think there's a guy who's clearly better in that when you just look at how they play, when you just look at their impact, and when you just look at numbers. But I mean, it's a really interesting trade for a team in Orlando. By the way, you mentioned this, ones that we didn't see coming. There was smoke about Orlando for a while getting a guard, getting a creator. Darius Garland is the name that was being floated around there. He got hurt. He got toe surgery. He might miss the start of next year. Obviously, that would diminish his value. Cleveland would want to probably trade him at a higher point. So in canvassing the rest of the league, Memphis was a team that people looked at as like, hey, could they move one of these guys? Is it going to be Ja? Is it going to be Jaren Jackson Jr.? Is it going to be Bane? Well, it ends up being Bane for the time being. Don't know if Memphis is going to blow up. Don't know what it's going to be, but like it's interesting because Orlando wants to get aggressive. They feel like they can win now. And the last piece before I toss it back to you real quick, Paolo Banchero is still on the contract.
Yeah, right.
He's getting $15 million this upcoming season. So when he gets his extension, his rookie scale extension, which reportedly could be like 5 years and like 246 million, closer to 300 million if he gets like all NBA, whatever the accolades are, depending on what that is. The point is they're getting Bane's contract while not paying Paolo Banchero that much. His deal will kick in next year, like 2026. So it's like when you have the young quarterback who's really good on their rookie scale contract, and it's like, let's get him a big time receiver now before the quarterback gets very expensive.
Okay, so a few things on this. Number one, obviously, Orlando has to be taken seriously in the Eastern Conference. Now, I think that was the case even before this, but Banchero and Wagner actually didn't play well. It's not that they didn't play well together. It's that the Magic's record with both of them healthy this year was not that good. It was actually better at times when one or both was out. It was actually Suggs' injury at the end of the year that really kind of sunk them, and they dipped. But now, again, you're adding a guy in Bane next to Suggs, who it seems like a perfect fit to me. I mean, that backcourt's going to be very difficult to deal with for a lot of different reasons, and they're both young guys. Also, this speaks to the fact that we talk so much about high picks. Desmond Bane was a guy a lot of teams could have had. I actually thought that year that's who the Heat should have taken. I know a lot of people have talked about Maxey, but Bane was my pick for them before the draft because I'm like, okay, that's an NBA-ready body, a shooter, and that's someone I think they should have actually taken it. And I said it at the time. So it is what it is, but it's just interesting because we talk about a guy who a couple of years later was so coveted that Orlando's given up four first-round picks for him. And at the time, he was a guy who slipped, I believe, into the late 20s in the draft. But also, I think what this speaks to is we talk about these free agent contracts, and like KCP at the time seemed like this really good deal that was going to help put them over the top because they needed a defender who could shoot, who had some championship experience with Denver, and they had to basically pay to get off of his contract. And it's one of the reasons why I say to Heat fans at times, be careful what you wish for. Just adding a new player doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make you better, and if it's the wrong contract. And we have seen that with Terry Rozier. The difference is that Terry Rozier only has 1 year left that the Heat have to deal with this. But they did give up a first-round pick to get him, and Orlando didn't do that with KCP. So there's a few things to get into there. As far as as far as what this means beyond that, okay, we've seen now, and I know that the KCP factor plays into this and getting off the contract. But we've seen, I believe, 16 first-round picks traded for Rudy Gobert, Mikal Bridges, and Desmond Bane, none of whom are superstars, okay? On good teams, probably all three of them are your third most impactful player. I don't know that you could even say that on a championship team, any of them would be your second most impactful player. In fact, Orlando, I don't think is even expecting Bane to be their second. I think they're expecting him to be their third or perhaps their fourth. In New York, Bridges, I had an up and down season, was better late, and then he frustrated some Knicks fans. You know that better than I do during the postseason. But they were not expecting him to be their best or second best player. They were expecting him essentially to be probably their third or fourth best player, and that's about where he fell this year, probably their fourth best player. So right. So you're talking about giving up loads and loads and loads of draft capital for guys who are not number ones. And that I thought was going to start to taper off a little bit because the Gobert deal, in my view, was still a disaster. I understand that Minnesota's gone to the Western Conference Finals twice, so perhaps some Wolves fans would disagree with me about this, but you're talking about a guy that you can't really play in certain circumstances in the postseason and can't give you anything offensively and has one defensive style that he plays. So the draft pick capital that has to be given up for these guys. And so as we pivot on the other side of this to how this affects the Heat, which is what I want to do here, I think it's worth noting, okay, that to get a really good player or even a good player, a third or fourth best player, you still need a lot of draft capital. And I know that Heat fans are going to say, well, that's why the Heat should be accumulating all these picks and going backwards. And that's kind of what you've talked about. But it's also why I say sometimes you can't compete with some of these teams that just have more picks to give. And so going that direction doesn't make any sense, because if OKC won somebody or San Antonio won somebody or Utah won somebody, or in this case, Memphis had picks to give, if one of these teams has picks to give, the Heat are never going to have that many picks to give because it's just not the way that they operate. And so we'll talk about it both ways here on the other side. Before we do, though, speaking of cash, because Desmond Bane is getting a lot of it, we want to mention Cash App. Everybody on Five on the Floor has Cash App. That's right. So even me, the old guy, same age as the three other guys combined. Well, not really, because we throw Greg in there. But either way, we all have Cash App because making money moves should be easy. And that's where there's Cash App. It's fast, safe, and honestly, way more personalized than the other apps out there. No extra hoops to jump through, no extra stress. All the tools are right there to help you cash in. Plus, sending money with Cash App actually feels safe. They look out for you. If something seems sketchy or they see you might be sending money to a potential scanner, they'll warn you and make you think twice before you hit send. It's like having a personal bodyguard for your cash. If for whatever insane reason you don't already have Cash App, just download it from your phone's app store, sign up, enter the code on the floor in your profile, send $5 to a friend, and you get $10 just for getting started. So again, check it out for limited time only. We are mentioning that. New Cash App users can use our exclusive code. Again, it's on the floor to earn some additional cash. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days. You get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Okay, so let's get to the Heat part of this, because they're working on a deal for Kevin Durant. So we're going to try to do this rapid fire as much as we can, and you and I don't do a very good a job of that, but we're going to try to condense this. All right, let's start with number one. Okay,
sure.
Do we think that this affects the Heat's pursuit of Kevin Durant in any way, considering that much draft compensation was given up for a player who is 10 years younger than Durant, but has not accomplished anything close to what Durant has accomplished? Do we think this has any impact on the Heat's pursuit of Durant, or is that simply about the teams that are involved and what Phoenix was or wasn't willing to do?
There are a couple things there, because with Orlando, there's almost desperation, I feel like, because they really want to win now. It seems like. Um, it makes me wonder, like, if they have an underachieving season, what happens to their head coach? But I think, and it sounds crazy, but like, I trust me. I think as it pertains to Kevin Durant, the asking price is still going to be high, maybe higher if you really look at it, because there's a very public sweepstakes going on. We know
Right.
that there's teams that are allegedly dropping out of the race and coming into the race or whatever, but it's the same teams all along who have been tied to this. The teams in Texas, not Dallas, but the other two teams in Texas, Miami, San Antonio. I think the Clippers are being slept on here. And if the Clippers, because there's reporting and also just NBA chatter about how much they want a center in Phoenix. And Zubats will be as good as you can do compared to a lot of these other guys. So we'll see what happens on that front. And then I think when you compare it to Bane, like Kevin Durant is seen as more of a final piece. I think for Orlando, Bane is like another piece. They still have enough contract. Like they could still make another move. Maybe not one this sizable, and obviously they blew some of their draft capital on this, but they have Wendell Carter Jr.'s contract, they have Jonathan Isaac's contract, they have Goga Batase's contract. Like they can still do something else. Whereas I think if you're getting Kevin Durant, this is like the move. And then you try to work around that with other pieces, role players, and around the margins and what have you.
Okay. No, I know that's fair. I will say this specifically to Heat fans who are concerned that Phoenix is suddenly going to say, well, they got 4 first-round picks, and so now we need to get 4 first-round picks. I don't see that materializing. I don't. I can see Ishbia wanting more because he has wanted more, the owner of the Suns, and he's asked the Heat, among other teams, for more. And I think some of what we're seeing right now, and it's why the leaks are coming out, is that the Suns are trying to get teams to ante up certain players that they want. The teams are not inclined to ante up. Now, I believe on the Heat side, that would likely be Ware. I believe on Minnesota's side, if Durant would even extend there, I believe that would be probably Jaden McDaniels. I think some of that is going on with some of these teams. With the Spurs, it's pretty clear. They don't want to give up Castle. They don't want to give up the number 2 pick. And so to get a deal done with the Spurs, they got to end with Houston. They have a list of young guys, which Phoenix may have a pecking order of if Houston's even interested in this. And Houston may not be inclined to give up one, but the idea is, okay, pit these teams against each other. And then also talk about what the market is. And again, you're putting out there a player who has won an MVP. Okay, so this is not Desmond Bane, even though he's 10 years older. So I understand, again, why Heat fans be a little freaked out about it, but I don't really think – I think it's more about the teams that are involved currently with Durant and Phoenix's desire to move him. They don't want to take him into the season. And so I feel like there's a clock ticking on them, and that clock is basically the draft, I believe. So we're looking at the Wednesday the 25th. Okay, now the second question we have here going forward, we've already talked about the Orlando part of this, and this is a reasonable question, and I'll throw it to you, and I hate that we keep coming back to this on every single episode, but we got to talk about Tyler Herro because he's been put in this class with Desmond Bane, with Tyrese Maxey, with Anthony Simons. There's a certain type of guard, even though Tyler, obviously not as physical as Bane, different kind of player in some regards, but there are some similarities, okay? And I think there are 2 ways to look at this. One way to look at this is if Desmond Bane is that valuable, shouldn't the Heat view Tyler Herro as that valuable? But then the other part of that is, well, if Tyler is that valuable, would the Heat be better off moving Tyler to try to get a haul similar to what Memphis just got for Desmond Bane prior to Herro's contract getting to a level that actually, if he's extended, would be above where Bane's is right now? So I will just throw the Tyler Herro question at you. If you're the Heat and you're looking at what Desmond Bane just commanded in a trade, because we thought Orlando was a possible place for Tyler to land. We've mentioned Orlando, Detroit. That's been one of the teams. Now he's not. They went for Bane. What's your view on that?
I think there's no KCP in the deal, so that kind of distorts the true value of just Desmond Bane 1v1 for a little bit, right? And I also think here's another thing you have to consider. Desmond Bane's already signed, and he's going to be making sub 40 million for the next 2 years until he goes above that. As I mentioned earlier, the end of his deal is going to be at 45 million years from now, like toward the end of the decade. And we've been talking here about, is Tyler Herro going to ask for the max? Is he going to ask for 45? Is it going to be something along those lines? So there's a world where his deal starts at a number where Desmond Bane's ends. If it's in that $45 million range, like that matters. He's extension eligible this summer. He's going to have to get extended soon. Doesn't have to be this summer, it could be next year, but it's going to have to be soon. And that's the other thing. It's like whoever trades for him is or should want to extend him. Like Tyler Herro would then like probably, if a player like him is getting traded, they will likely have worked out an extension prior. Or they'll have the Mikal Bridges situation where it's something talked about all year long. And then it's like, well, he's going to get it right. He's going to get it right. And then there's a level of uncertainty there, especially now that the team is firing their coach, although we don't anticipate that the Heat are going to do that at some point. And then there's the other element of Desmond Bane is just better. Like, if we can just do this real quick.
Go ahead.
This is pretty important. Like, from the 2022 playoffs until now, because Desmond Bane, he barely got playing time in the playoffs before that. From the 2022 playoffs until now, Desmond Bane is averaging 22 playoff games, 19.4 points, 5 rebounds, 2.6 assists on 43, 39, 90 shooting. Herro, since those same playoffs, 2022, so this is the year he was sixth man of the year until now, 25 playoff games, so about the same, 22, 25. 14 points a game, 5 fewer. Rebounds, 1.3 less. And we look at him as a good rebounding guard, and he is. 3.3 assists per game on 41% shooting, 29% from 3, and 89% on free throws on the times he gets to the line. I think about 2 a game during that stretch. And Herro's played 50 playoff games in his career. The first 25, which a lot of that was obviously in the bubble, 14.5 points a game. So it's not like a dramatic increase or anything. 5 rebounds a game, 3.4 assists, still 42% shooting from the field, 37% from 3, which is good. But again, a lot of that in the bubble. We haven't really seen that in the playoffs since. And the other element of this is, if you want to look at, hey, Tyler Herro was an all-star. Tyler Herro's more productive last year. Well, he's also led the Heat in usage for 4 straight seasons. From 6th man of the year until now, he's had the highest usage rate on his team, 28.8, 25.6. That year he was tied first with Jimmy Butler. That was the 8th seed miracle team who ended up going to the finals, which he
wasn't participating.
He wasn't even participating in that playoff run. 27.8 last year he was first. 28 last year he was first. He's the Miami Heat usage rate champion for 4 straight years. Desmond Bane's never been on a team where he's led a team in usage rate. He was a full-time starter for the first time in his second year. His usage was 23. He was 4th on the team. Since then, he's been second, and third, 26.1, 28.5, 23.3. The 28.5 was because everybody got hurt in Memphis. Ja played like 9 games and then was hurt out again. Jaren Jackson. Like everybody got hurt. That's the only year he's had that kind of usage. So he's more efficient. He doesn't need the ball as much. He can catch and shoot legitimately. And defensively, he's probably more competitive. I would say, like, he has the short arm problem that Tyler Herro has, but defensively, you trust Bane more. And the playoff resume is the playoff resume. Like, yeah, he didn't play in the NBA Finals, but he's been better, like considerably better for years now as a playoff performer. And I think Orlando probably identified that too.
Okay, so that can be played both ways, though. If we're to make the argument that Desmond Bane is a better player than Tyler Herro, okay, that he's done more with less, essentially. Less.
I think. By the way, I don't think
shots.
It's like a wide. I don't think it's a
wide.
But like
I know you're not. But if you're making that case, then it does kind of shoot down the case that some on Heat Twitter have made today, that because Orlando got this for Bane, the Heat should be shopping Tyler to accumulate picks, because actually the argument you're making is if most teams agree with you and they would find Bane to be an easier fit for them or a higher upside player for them, then probably Tyler wouldn't command what Bane commanded. Is that fair to say? And does that influence your decision about whether or not? Because I know we're saying on one hand, it's like, well, if he's not a better player than Bane, but the Heat are going to have to pay him more than Bane's making, well, then it makes sense to shop him right before that happens. But then also, if we're saying that other teams are going to see Bane as a better player than Tyler or a better fit than Tyler, they're not going to give up quite as much. Then it doesn't really behoove the Heat. Maybe it behooves the Heat to explore it, but it's probably not going to behoove the Heat to take it. I mean, what do you think? I guess the easiest way to put it is this way.
Yeah.
If Desmond Bane is worth that, okay, and part of it was that getting off of, KCP's contract too, which is part of it. So what do you think that's worth? 1 first-round pick maybe? So we're talking about 3 first-round picks that really you're accumulating for here. If Bane is worth 3, let's just say that. Bane is worth 3. What is Tyler worth to the right team?
What's the right team for Tyler? Because
Detroit. Let's say it's Detroit. Let's say you're looking for a secondary scorer to play off of Cade. You got a lot of other really good young players. He fits their timeline. They look like they needed one more guy, right, to get past the Knicks.
Okay. Well, I would say they have one on their roster in Jaden Ivey.
Okay.
Who costs less, who's not
expensive. But Tyler, and we've talked about the possibility of even trading Tyler for Jaden Ivey and getting ahead of that timeline financially.
I don't know if Detroit wants to do that, Okay. But I mean, like Jaden Ivey's not better than him, but like, I mean, he could be at some point.
Right.
He was drafted very highly. He was shot 40% for 3. He was balling before he got hurt. And if he's in that series, maybe they beat the Knicks.
Right.
Like, it's totally possible. But to answer your question, I think if Bane is worth 3, like, Herro's got to be close. But the thing is, he has to go to the right team. It's easier, I think, and Orlando would agree, evidently. It's easier for Orlando to be like, hey, we'll put in Desmond Bane as opposed to, somebody who maybe needs the ball more because they want the ball in Paolo Banchero's hands more, Franz Wagner's hands more. Like Desmond Bane's been third banana his entire career, and he's really good at that. So he could do it again against 2 guys who Orlando is building around, essentially, with Jalen Suggs, who is defensive player of the year level good when he's healthy.
Right.
Like,
that's one of the reasons I thought Herro would be a fit there because. But obviously, like you said, they either didn't decide that, and I don't know all the specifics on that. I know there's some rumors about conversations between them and the Heat. I haven't heard. I haven't heard it directly, and I don't like to report other people's stuff on the Heat until I can kind of get an answer. But I think that if you look at what they had, that's one of the reasons we made that case for Tyler in Orlando because he could play next to Suggs. And he was clearly better. He's clearly better than what Orlando's had in the backcourt with Suggs, no question. Whether it was Cole Anthony or Anthony Black or any of the rest of them, or KCP.
Do you think if there's a team right now willing to trade them 2 first-round picks, they would have already done it for Tyler Herro?
It's such a tough question. I don't know. I know it really is.
Alex.
I really am. I'm going the Alex route on this one. I really don't know because it all depends on direction. If they were willing to go the direction that you've talked about and some others have talked about, where you take the step back,
it doesn't even need to be that though, Ethan.
No, but then accumulating. But if let's say you take the 2 first-round picks for him,
plus the matching salary. Let's say it's this,
plus the matching salary, but a player not
it's a deal like this, basically.
Okay, so a KCP level player is what you're getting back. Let's say that
a overpaid role player who you're hoping.
We kind of talked, Brian. Honestly, on an episode, we kind of talked about this. We talked about taking. I don't know if you were on it with me. I can't remember. We've done so many of these, but like we've talked about the idea of taking a bad contract and taking picks for it. Well, it was the Paul George episodes. I don't know who I was talking about that, but KCP, I guess, applies. This would be the test case. No. This would be this. I mean, that's worse. That's a lot worse. I get it. I get it. I understand that, but I'm saying this would be
Paul George is taking up like a 30-year cap.
But he's a better podcaster. This would be a smaller test case.
Very
of
small,
would the
very
Heat take
smaller.
a bad
Paul George
contract?
Is going to make $51 million this year.
I get it. I get well. So
like there are Heat fans
he's been a really good player.
There are fans in your Discord saying, "Hey, Tyler for number 3 and Paul George," and I'm like, one, I don't know if Morey wants Herro and Maxey together.
Doesn't mean that one never made sense.
And no. 2. why would you want Paul George and that contract if you're staring at potential flexibility in a year? Potentially.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
Just,
But it is like I said. This KCP would be a small test case. Let me ask you this. Let's say Orlando would come to you and the contracts even match. What was KCP's number?
22-ish.
Okay, so there would need to be more money thrown in. Okay, to reach Tyler.
Was like, well, Bane is making. So we're still in the 2024-2025 league.
No, but also Cole Anthony was thrown in and others. So I'm saying
Bane's making like $5 million more currently than Herro is. It's just when Herro gets his extension, that's
I get it.
Probably,
but the trade that you make to match salaries would be now prior to the extension. So if we were saying let's say that Orlando, we can end this here. Okay, let's say that Orlando. Okay, you and I never do rapid fire properly. Okay, but anyway, it is what it is. Let's say that Orlando had reached out to the Heat and said, okay, we like Tyler. We're not going to give you 4 first-round picks, but we'll give you 2. We'll give you KCP, and we'll match salary. So does KCP and Cole Anthony match?
It would be like KCP and like Gary Harris.
Okay, so let's say it's Gary
or Goga Batadze.
Okay, let's say Batadze or Gary Harris. Okay, I think the Heat have checked in on Gary Harris before. It was a long time ago. But okay, let's say
surprise me at all.
No, okay, but
I can totally see that.
Back in his Denver days, I believe I remember that, but I'm so old at this point. I might be conflating with something else. But let's just say that they reached out and said, "Here's KCP, 2 first-round picks, and Gary Harris for Tyler." If you're the Heat, and let's say they're lightly protected, maybe picks or whatever you want to do that.
There was a lightly protected swap. So you could just say the 2 unprotecteds in the future and a swap. Okay. Or maybe 16 this year, a future pick and a swap is probably.
All right. If you're the Heat right now, and we'll end it with this, would you have taken that deal? KCP 2 first-round picks, Gary Harris, and picks lightly, and then a swap.
I mean, if I can get 2 first-round picks, I gotta at least strongly consider it. I probably would, because you would take the 2 first-round picks or take the other picks, and then that's how you can try to get, if you really want Kevin Durant, like that's how you can try to do it.
Do you have to have another move? Do you have to have another move lined up to make this trade, or you just take the 2 first-round picks and say you just sit on it? Do you have to? It doesn't have to be for something. In other words, you can get this guy, whether it's Durant or somebody else. You can get this guy with the 2 first-round picks. Because the inclination I get is the Heat are trying to get KD, and they are viewing this as a trio. They're viewing this as Bam, KD, and Tyler. Now, whether or not they extend Tyler and Tyler becomes a long-term part of this trio, that that's up for debate. They could extend
both of them technically. They could extend KD and Tyler if they wanted to.
They could, and then they've got something like 90% of their cap tied up in 3 players once these extensions kick in. Although I guess if the thresholds rise, maybe they'll have 70 to 75%. But let's just say, I don't even know where we are with this at this point. But
no, to answer,
would you make the trade without knowing you had something? You say you would make the trade if you're the Heat. Would you make it not knowing what you were going to do with those 2 first-round picks, but basically just to add to your war chest here?
And then figure it. I think you can do it and figure it out later. I think at the very least, have like a framework, like have some sort of a plan of what you can turn around and do, because you could just turn that into a 3rd teamer right there. But I think, to me, maybe you can do better, but I'm not sure. Like I feel like if they could do better, they would have already traded him by now. And I don't, or maybe it's just what I assume you would say is like they only want to move him to move up, so to speak, instead of to move laterally.
That's what I think.
I think the same thing too, because that's pretty much how they've conducted it, which I think is fine. But I think if all options are going to be on the table, especially with how you looked in the playoffs last year, like you have.
The other part of this is that
if it's even on the table, because no one,
if it's even on the table, right? But here's the other part of it. If you like Tyler this much, that 2 first-round picks and a functional guard to replace him is not enough, then you're planning to extend him.
Right. That's the other thing.
Then you're planning to extend him. Then you're considering a part of the long-term core. And I think that's where Heat fans get freaked out, because then they're saying they're really going to pay him $50 million and they're going to have Bam on the books for this. And if it's the two of them, how do they make something work with another significant player? And so all of these things play into it. But I guess these are really the two things I want to get into. We did tap into them, and I know we'll get into it more on Off the Floor. But the first thing is I don't really see – this is just where I'm coming from. I don't really see this affecting the ransom that Orlando basically gave up to get Bane. I don't see that affecting the Heat's pursuit of Durant. I think there are other factors affecting that. His whims, Phoenix's whims, the other teams that are involved, what other teams are willing to give up. I don't think the fact that so many first-round picks, I don't think now we're like, oh, wow, we're back in a Rudy Gobert market. And so, and I didn't mean to say bear market, but, Rudy market. Okay. And that, so I don't think that affects it, but I do think this does color kind of the way they proceed with Tyler, because if the only reason to extend him for that much money is if they view him as a better player than Desmond Bane, honestly.
And they probably do, because they'll be like, he's an all-star. But when you look at it in depth, it's not that simple, I don't think. And It's also very hard to be an all-star in the Western Conference at guard.
Well, that's true.
Let me throw this at
neither
you.
of them is going to be an all-star this year, by the way, because if they do the USA World thing the way they're doing it, neither of them is going to be an all-star.
Let me ask you this real quick.
You and I could be world all-stars if we declare our citizenship somewhere overseas, honestly.
Yeah. Puerto Rico, I would do it.
That's not overseas, Brian.
No, but Jose Alvarado plays for the Puerto Rican national team. He's from Brooklyn. Like, literally,
yeah, but okay. If Jose Alvarado is up for it, is he up for the USA team or the World team?
No, they would put him for the World because he represents Puerto Rico in the Olympics and in FIFA.
I'm not going to argue with you about this. I'm just saying. I assumed. Okay,
no, but that's how you do.
Anyway,
Carl Anthony Towns will represent the world also. Even though he's from Jersey, he's Dominican. Last thing I'm gonna throw at you.
Yes.
Do you think this affects Tyler's trade market at all? So, like, would they then look at this and be like, "Oh, our asking price is higher now," or nothing?
For this reason, for exactly what you said, I don't think he's as easy a fit on a lot of teams because the perception is that the ball needs to be in his hands more, and he's not as easy a slide into a third guy on a team. And by the way, if Durant comes, Tyler's not going to be the third guy on this team either. He's going to be the second guy on offense.
He'll be the first guy on the games Kevin Durant misses.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother topic. I know that's what Eternal wants to do. So anyway, let's see. All right, look, I'm just hoping this Durant thing gets done in the next 3 days. He can bang the drum at the Panther game on Tuesday night, and then away we go. All right, Brian, appreciate it. Thank you very much for stirring things up as usual. We did rapid fire, I think, in 18 minutes, so that's our worst effort ever. Thanks to our sponsors. Again, check out Off the Floor. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE, and also Cash App. Use the code On the Floor. By the time we wake up, there will be 12 first-round picks traded for Tyrese Maxey. Have a good day, everybody.